y'all?
Yeah, a little bit noisy. Just to poll the community members to see what this hospital needs, what the town needs, what the community needs, what the county needs for us to advance in the future and be able to keep industry here. And what's good for the local medical community. And I think that's reasonable. I mean, rather than getting down to specifics of we want line 407, you know, that's not the time to do that. The time to do is to come up with what we want for the future, what the county needs to prosper. And that's something that's not insignificant. For this county to prosper, we have to have certain things in that hospital or we will never attract business. I think that's a given. They are not there at this point in time. Unless we get it there in the future, this county is locked into.
You're going.
That's a different deal, but that's what I'm saying. They need. That's part of what they need to look at. That's what I'm getting at.
Okay, that's one opinion. Anybody else? We're talking about a 3-person committee that's going to do the initial footwork of an outline of what we need to consider.
I think that also in that, you said don't include like line 3 or 4 or whatever. I think that's a possibility we could have to look at too. So we can look at this by line item as well. Because we're looking at the lease for long term, whether we're going to replicate this lease, extend this lease, renew this lease with modifications, or provide a brand new lease.
Yeah.
And so I think it's important we look at the line by line item. So I do think that's important that we do that.
The lawyer suggested to me that we just do an overview and come up with some preferences, for lack of a better word, of things that we would like to have that we don't have now, and things that we would rather not have that we do have.
Kind of a wish list.
Yeah, sort of. And then expand on that, and that, you know, you're talking about something like that, so as well.
The starting point.
What do you want? Comments regarding what we think should be on the wish list?
I wouldn't hurt it.
Okay, well, one of the things that I know, when I reviewed this contract, really line by line, and took some time doing it, and one of the things that I see is, I see that ETMC has honored the contract, that it established rural clinics, and it established recruitment, it established all that back in 1994 when the lease was originally written and signed in 95. But it did not say anything in the lease about continuing those services following the establishment. And I think I'd like to see that as part of the lease, whether if we are going to do recruitment, if we are going to establish rural health clinics, that we try to develop in the lease or in a lease a long-term establishment of those things that were originally established, such as the rural health clinics, the recruitment of the specialty groups that are no longer here, but were here initially.
I think that should be, I mean, that's appropriate for them to go down and look at, but I think that's, you know, if we go line by line now,
Right.
we're not going to get anywhere. But if you have a small group that can do it, then come back to the whole.
Well, I'm just saying,
do it.
wish
And I
list.
think that's an appropriate thing. I've looked at stuff like that. I've gone through it. And there are times, and there is this is the lease written by their lawyers. There's a lot of nebulous. And I mean, that's just what needs to be done. We need to say, I don't mind a lot of this, but this needs to be hardcore. This needs to be delineated for not just now, but the future. And that's, which is not cute throwing it out, it's just a lot of tweaking.
I don't think you were part of the lease writing. And there was a lot of, I mean, we had just as much as that.
Yeah.
To be honest, you know, that was it.
Yeah.
It took weeks.
Okay. But
52 weeks.
But I think it would be a much more efficient process if we did it that way.
Well, you know, my feeling is that, I mean, there's no way that this existing lease would be renewed as is. I pretty much feel like we need new lease.
But
And not that there's anything, but this is just outdated. I mean, the whole healthcare
It's all
environment
changed.
has changed, and so there's things that are just so totally different.
And a lot of things will change after December as well, when we figure out what the legislature's gonna pass with the super committee and with things like healthcare expenditures and where rates are going up or down, or
yeah,
who's covered for what. We don't really know what that horizon is at this point in time. We have a lot of guessing. And I know, we have a lot of committees at our national level and our state level that are actually looking at all this. And you don't know until it comes out of committee, until it comes out of the legislature, what we're going to have. That's something to think about too. So I think this is something that obviously, this is a work in progress, and looking at these issues. And I think it's going to take some time to go over this. I think committee's a good idea, but we also have some intangibles, such as the legislature and the super committee and what they're doing right now with funding the Medicare, Medicaid, et
well,
cetera.
that's, when you come back, that's what it has
Sure.
to be.
But I mean, that goes along, I'm just supporting, I guess,
Yeah.
Deb's statement about looking at the new lease, looking at the possibility of the new lease because of that.
What kind of a timeline does this committee have? If we have a committee of 3 to do an in-depth study and come back with suggestions, ideas, recommendations, what kind of a timeline are we looking at for that 3-member committee? Like,
3 months,
60 days.
60 days, 2 months, okay, 60 days.
Well, I think Dr. Morrison needs to be on it.
One of the advantages he has is he's connected with the political aspects where you have a pretty good read of legislature and which way things are going in the future, which is, we definitely need somebody in the committee who has their finger on that pulse, because that'll make a difference in what we can do and can't do. A lot of this is out of our hands. So I think I would agree with him.
and the legislature's not going to meet till,
It's going to be December, so I would think we need to form this up until actually at the end of the year
Okay.
to present. But however, I would not be opposed to presenting a monthly report on the process.
That would be.
I see 60 days would be,
It'll be
Well,
first. Let's just make it the end of the year, for January.
Okay, make it in the year, but you can do it with a monthly report. I
Yeah.
think that would be a good way to do it. And that way, when the legislature does speak,
May change everything.
it may change
nothing.
everything.
we're talking Medicaid right now.
Medicare, Medicaid.
Medicaid, that all makes a difference in how we don't feel.
Anything the legislature
So it still
does.
can do it.
So we need to try to make this, need to try to make this as much of a fluid document.
Sure.
Well, I think the committee, once they start meeting, I think, I don't know how to say this, the bottom line is, and I think we all feel this way, we think this opinion is that we don't want the citizens of this county to have to leave for anything that they don't absolutely want. We're trying to provide as many services here, cardiology, back services, internal medicine, surgery, everything. Which,
That can reasonably be
At the-
supported by a county this size.
at this point,
And
we're
that's-
sort of backed up a little bit. Not quite as far forward as we were. I mean, for me, for instance, my wife had surgery, she had to done somewhere else. Shut down my business. So it's been a real asset for me to have the surgery done here. All right, Dr. Morrison, would you agree, sir?
Yes.
She would be too.
Is there a magic number about 3 members?
Well, it has to be less than.
Well, I mean,
That's definitely less.
well, I know, but I mean, sometimes it's better to have a couple more heads. I mean, why couldn't it be 4?
It could be 4.
And
it's a
then,
max.
yeah.
Max can be
Max is 4.
Well, I think one of you ladies from Runway should be in the committee. She said you were gonna be on the committee. Good, thank you.
Good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Why don't I try to be a member at large, so it's good.
I think that'd be a good committee. Okay,
Okay.
I think that's excellent.
And
And I propose that these 4 serve as men. Okay.
any more discussion on this? Any opposition to that motion?
This goes with forming the committee and for serving as appointments. Okay.
Now, because of her tendency to be assertive, I would like Deborah to be the head up of the committee. She can organize, she's very organized. She's much better than I am. And I'll do what she tells me to do.
Well, let's specifically outline the goals of the committee. It is to review.
First of all,
We have both.
you have both.
Yes, we have, yeah.
We're going to do it all in favor of the board.
It's already.
Okay.
There were no objections.
All right.
So that's a vote. Go ahead, Carol.
So we'll review the lease for the future. We renew it in the future and with the problems of the
Why don't
lease.
we let the committee sort of
Come up with their own goals.
with the method of doing it, okay? Because right now, we're sitting here at 10 minutes trying to figure it out. The committee's gonna have time to sit down.
And if they're gonna come back, you guys are gonna come back once a month during the meetings and give us an update. If there is areas that need to be explored, that can be brought up and you guys can look at it. Okay? And I think that way, rather than trying to say, this is in and this is out.
Well, and I also think, I would appreciate all board members if they would take the time to just jot down some
Make some notes.
notes about the things that you feel should be addressed. And then that way, that will help us get started also, and, so we won't be, well, right, we'll have other interests, so.
And not to overwhelm all the board members, but if people in the community have certain needs or views that they would like to see this direction go, I think it would be, I mean, they could sit down and try to articulate it in a letter presented to the committee. And that way, basically, we're here to serve the community, and that way they can take in the community's view. And
That goes without saying that we would be open to any input from
it would be nice to have a articulated letter or something like that that we can give to a committee. They can review and see which way.
Deborah, do you have any other questions or suggestions? I took care of one of the jobs y'all gave me last time. First of all, I was gonna go to Tyler last week and they were, but I did find out the surgical suite, the plans should be ready in about a week and a half. And they should have it out for bid by July. Good.
Excellent.
I did find out about the A&M contract for the student housing.
Yeah.
I'll get that done next week. I'll find out about that. And were there any other jobs y'all had? I have a few things on my own agenda. No, we can't. I've already talked to him about that. He said we couldn't do that tonight, but we'll do it next meeting. And he's gonna come up with a I'm not sure it'll be a figure, but it'll be something.
Is any,
Well, it's not on the agenda. He had asked me.
October 25th?
Yeah.
You're gonna have.
Oh, well, it's scheduled, so why don't we
Why don't you tell us Actually, I'm not pretty close.
Anybody have any questions?
Is that our regular meeting? Is that
Yeah,
our
I think they
regular
have questions.
monthly
No,
meeting?
Carol?
our regular meeting is the third.
Yeah, we have a regular
third
meeting
Tuesday.
coming up.
We're through with the regular agenda. Did
This
anybody
is the
have a?
first Tuesday.
My God, I don't know what we're doing.
Okay.
The 18th would be
Anybody have any-
our
Eight,
regular meeting.
18 will be our regular meeting. So we
Just
can have a
Hall?
report for that.
Excuse me.
meeting.
we have- Yes, sir.
You know me, I believe I'm James Hall.
I do.
I think the board does too. I believe this is supposed to be, I think, an interface relation between the people here and the board meeting. Am I true on that? Or it's not that? Well, I don't know. If it was intended to be, it's a failure. And this is
But if
just
it
a-
wasn't intended to be, is it a
If it was
success?
intended, it's all right, but
Okay.
if it was intended to be, I don't think anybody in here knows what you said or anything, so that's okay. But if it was intended to be that, I would recommend a different mode be used.
Well, this is not a good meeting.
In order to do that, this is not good. We
This is
tried
not a
it
good
in place
meeting.
and it doesn't work. But anyway, that would be my suggestion. We have some excellent meeting rooms now in the Civic Center. Please make use of them.
Well, on paper, this looks like a good idea.
They're good.
Okay, but
They're good.
in reality, it didn't.
It's pretty good. I would, some of you probably know, I was here a long time ago when the first contract was written. I mean, you got another care package that's being written up because nobody knows really what's going to happen at this point. So hopefully, you will get the public more involved at the time that whatever package you draw up from the board and have public meetings on those, because having been members of boards and working with them a lot, an awful lot of smart people, and so are you, but you don't know everything. Nobody does. And it really helps to have other input to whatever you do. Don't want to talk forever, but thank you very much for your time. I appreciate your efforts, and I think everybody else would too if they could hear it just a little bit more. Thank you, Don.
Thank you, Tom. Well, I'm sorry that it didn't work out where it was audible for everyone. We didn't actually expect, I expected 3 or 4 people maybe. I had no idea that it was going to be anything like this. And that's why I say this venue is not amenable to this sort of meeting with this many people. Basically, what we have decided is that we're going to have a committee of 4 people from the board are going to work on an outline of the things that we need to consider on the lease. They will report monthly to the board, but we've given them until 1st of the year, 1st of January, to come with some meaningful suggestions of the things that we need to address with ETMC to start the process of renegotiating the lease. It always has been the desire of the board that our first choice would be to renew the lease with ETMC. That makes the most sense, and that's what we want to do. On the other hand, there are things that we feel like need to be addressed in the new lease that would benefit the people that live in this county. Things that could be improved. It may take effort on our part, it may take effort on ETMC's part. Whatever it needs to be done, that's what we're going to try to do, to provide the highest quality, the most services that we can to the people that live here so that they don't have to take their 80-year-old mother to Tyler or Bryan or Lufkin to have medical care. Within reason. We know that we're not going to have a neurosurgeon here. I'm being a little ridiculous there, but I mean, just to make an example, we know that there are going to be services that we cannot provide, but we also know that there is a potential market for services here that are at this point not being provided, and we'd like to see those provided for the benefit of the people that are being cared for here. The 4 people on the committee are Ms. Blackwell, I'm sorry, Barbara, I'm drawing blanks. Barbara Krausen, Dr. Morrison, and I'm going to be sort of an extra person. And Ms. Blackwell is going to be the chair of the committee. I have a lot of confidence in her. I've served on boards with her before, and she is a very organized person. And I am not a very organized person, so I'm looking forward to Deborah chairing this committee. We're not going to try to get it done in 60 days. We're not going to try to get it done probably in 6 months, but this is a start. This is something that our lawyer in Austin suggested that we do, is to get our ideas together before we get him involved, because when you get the lawyers involved, it's the cash register starts changing. So, and he understands that. He's got our interest at heart. He said there's no reason for us to spend money on him until we get some concrete ideas. And once we deal with him, well, then we'll bring ETMC's lawyers and people in the administration there, Mr. Cutler, into the picture, and we'll start, I guess, what you would call negotiating. But until we get to that point, we're not going to rush. We've got 3.5 years, but, pretty soon it's going to be 2.5 years, and then it'll be 1.5 years. So we do need to get this ball rolling and get it done. And I apologize for the venue. I apologize for the inconvenience that was presented here. And we'll do better next time. We'll find a better place so that people can be comfortable and can hear. And as far as Cup said, that's all I've got to say about that. Any comments? Yes, ma'am.
I do have just a couple of things I'd like to ask, and it somewhat goes to what Mr. Hall, regarding indigent care. If you look at the contract on page 28II, it provides and reads in part, the total indigent care rendered by lessee at the hospital, the ADC, and rural clinics exceeds the greater of 7% of net patient revenues from such facilities for such lessee fiscal year, or the amount of charity care lessee is required to render for lessee and such facilities to be tax exempt under the state law. What that pretty much says is that ETMC is, under the lease, is responsible for indigent care, which equals 7% of the net patient revenues for the year 2000, for the year ending 2000 and have my number. Let's see. What it boils down to is, and I'll give you one of these, Mr. Stovall. For the year ending 9/30/10, 10%, and then the ETMC was responsible in 2010 for $1,873,830.47. They paid a total in charity care of $8,386,555.12. 2011 through only August the 30th, ETMC was responsible for $1,288,367.96. They provided $4,684,827.95. Under the lease, the Houston County Hospital District would then be responsible for 10% of the funds held in the non-operating account. For your year ending 8/30/10, you had $2,893,967.90, which 10% would be $289,396.79. For the year ending 9/30/11, 10% of the funds held in your non-operating account were $2,079,436.90, which equals $207,943.69. The total for those 2 years is $497,340.48. In addition, you should have received, here's another copy in case you didn't. From the county, a bill for inmate indigent care of $48,836.34 for a total of $546,176.82. If Houston County Hospital District would reimburse ETMC these amounts, which according to the lease are due, ETMC could fund at least 8 nurses, including benefits, or could use those monies
Can I ask you,
for,
what is the purpose of you bringing this up at this point?
well, just so you will have this information.
Is that germane to the discussion we're having tonight?
It goes to what Mr. Hall said, yes.
And it's not germane, let me just say something. If you look how these figures are arrived at, the hospital will typically, and most hospitals across the country, will typically bill from 5 to 10, and ETMC is renowned for billing for 20 times, and I've had many of these numbers I can bring out, what they will get reimbursed. So if you say this test cost, for instance, I can get an MRI of the shoulder with reading in other places for $600.
Wait.
But I'm talking about these are
My
highly
question is,
inflated
this just
numbers.
goes
We're not
to
going
the
to get into
lease.
that. These are highly
This
inflated
is,
numbers.
you know, I mean, there were
Whether it's
probably
germane,
another
this is a
time.
public meeting and I'm not entitled to bring my issues here.
Yes, you are.
Okay, and that's what I've done. And as I was saying before I was interrupted, if ETMC had this money, and even if, as you say, the figures were inflated, at some point ETMC has exceeded the indigent care and the Houston County Hospital District owes some money. That money can be used to provide extra services. And if you should at least look at those numbers and perhaps get with the financial people at ETMC and see what can be done to perhaps fulfill your obligation to indigent care and your lease.
I think you have brought up an excellent point, and I want to commend you.
Thank
What
you.
we will have to include in the future is we will have to put those numbers that you put on based on the reimbursement by the state of Texas for Medicaid. And I think that's an appropriate way of calculating that. And if you go back and redo those, I don't think you'll find them.
I calculated them according to the lease.
You calculated according to ET&C's view of what they
Okay,
charge.
this-
Nobody pays them.
You
Okay,
guys,
go ahead.
okay.
We can talk
I
about
mean,
this all
yeah.
night.
attacking public is not very nice. I brought a concern and asked if you would please look at that.
We will be glad.
Thank you.
I saw another hand, I think, did I not? Yes, ma'am.
Only thing I want to say, I want to echo what Mr. Hall said. All of us live here in Houston County. All of us are concerned about the health care of people in this community, regardless of where they come from or what walk of life. You have said in the meeting that you will get input from the community. That is very, very important. That every person in this community that wants to have some input be given that opportunity. And not for one select group to be able to not have knowledge of when this is going to happen or how it's going to happen. The people that's serving need to give the public information where they can do a true evaluation of what the citizens in Houston County want. I want to see more doctors, more expertise brought in, but I'm going to say something that's going to offend some people. All people don't go out of town just because of the hospital. Now let's make that clear too. Unfortunately, we have to go to where MD Anderson, and some of you on the board's been there, and I've been there, and my family's been there. And so there are situations where we have no control over. And for us to think that in reality that we can get what will benefit everybody in this community with the small volume of people that we have and the small number of people that are paying. It's not gonna happen. We can improve. We can improve. But you can't improve if you don't know how everybody feels. And like I told y'all before, I know how a lot of these people feel. I was in the emergency room with 3 different people in the last 2 weeks. I know how them people feel. But you will never know, because those people, unless they are given some information about where they can send their remarks and what they can say, you will never hear from them. And so I want to just go on record and state, I want the public to make those decisions too. I know you as a board have to evaluate it, and you have to put it in the legal terms that we can get for a rural community, for what this community can support, and that's what we need. But be sure, and I'm saying to everybody in this room, don't walk out of here tonight and you know who's going to be on this committee. If you have strong feelings about ETMC and the services you got, then you tell them. If you've got negative, you tell them. And that's what we want. And when the community as a whole makes that decision, then it will give you what you need to make a sound decision. And that way we'll all be in agreement. We'll come up with what's best for our community. And you know what, I hope we don't have some of the discussions we've had to have before. That's all I got to say.
Thank you. You know, it might be appropriate each week in the Courier to put a contact address where people could send suggestions in or ideas or so
All the media.
all the media. But I think that would be appropriate to do, to get a contact address that suggestions, ideas, opinions could be sent to for us to consider. Does anybody, does that sound like a good idea? Somebody else, yes, ma'am.
I have a comment about everybody just working together. You know, y'all talk about building services, maintaining services. ETMC is not why people are leaving our community. People are leaving our community because our schools are not where they need to be. Our local economy is not where it needs to be. So I would recommend that you work with some of our local leaders in other forums to try to maintain the services that we have. We've lost dollars not because of ETMC, but because they don't want their kids in school here, their wives didn't have enough places to shop. We haven't lost people because ETMC was here. We've lost them because of our community just wasn't big enough to sustain the lifestyle that they wanted to lead.
I would suggest that. I agree. Anybody else?
Doctor.
Yes, sir.
How you doing?
You're gonna be brief, right?
Always.
Yeah, right.
We'll take care of that.
I just want to say that I'm glad we had this meeting, and we're not where we're eventually going to get, but these meetings are fruitful and they're important that we get different voices and different, looks. Everybody's involved in this community, somewhat with the hospital. This is very important. I found out about this meeting through the Courier and Lion Hunt on the radio. And a lot of people are interested in what's going on. And I like the idea of the committee of 4. And we're going to be observing it, and I got great confidence because I think we can work it out. This is a small community, but we got so many brilliant people out here that I know we can work it out. And it's a matter of, like I told the president, is yes, we can. If we all give our ultimate effort and, do our best to work with each other despite our differences, we got to work with a solution here in Crockett compared to a lot of places. And I've lived in a lot of different places. So I encourage you all and I commend you all to keep doing what you're doing and work together and just put away a lot of the parts of the bickering, and, you know, get together and make this happen for the people, because we got a large amount of people that depend on this hospital and this hospital district. So that's me. Is that brief enough for you?
That's very good. That's the best you've ever done. Thank you. Are we done? Okay, thank y'all for coming, and we will, in January, when we have a meeting considering this, we will certainly post it later. Thank you. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.